show.
I started.
Just start the show.
You started the show. Matthew Lillard is here.
How long does it take to get mini Manola?
Dude, at the time you came here, though,
Bro, it was always the time I was coming.
I know, but I couldn't believe that was
Ladies
the time you
and
decided.
gentlemen, never accept this offer. If you were in Manhattan at 2 o'clock,
That's bad. That's I couldn't believe it. So you said though, but
suck it, Decola.
Ferriola. Yeah. So I
don't know why I wouldn't have. I literally said, "Can I take a train?"
You 100% could. It takes you from where you would have been. It took it. I go into the city. That's why when you said before, you could fly. I went to the city last night. It took me 35 minutes. Not today. Thank God I have talked to you before. You came into Collider. It was the end of 2018, and I was like, "No, he's a fun dude." I said, "Yeah, but it doesn't matter how fun someone is. You stick someone in a car for 2 hours, they're going to need a break." So and you could break. Let me show you this clip because this is what happened to us last time. We're talking about Van Damme.
Smart dude.
Oh.
Really? Oh, dude, super smart.
I want to know what the adjective is for me when I leave. What's it gonna be, boys?
Dream maker.
Hug him.
So there you go.
Get on there. Get up there.
Yeah, and there you go.
And my fat ass hanging out.
Thanks for coming in, brother man.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. Tell me about Macabre. I want to hear about what's going on because that's
Yeah.
You started this company a while ago, and
First
now,
of all, what's your podcast about? You just talk about cool things all the time.
yeah, man. So like I like to have people in here. Like I had on Mark Paul Gosselaar on today. We talked about
how's that?
It's fun, because I had never met him before,
Right?
And so we talked about. I was a big Saved by the Bell guy. I was growing up, but he's got a show on NBC Found right now. So I think at first, because I'd never met him before,
His big thing, he didn't do was it? No, he wasn't on Suits.
he was on Franklin and Bash.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So I didn't know what to expect. So we were talking, and it was. Yeah, first took him a second to warm up to me, but when he did, we talked about jiu-jitsu, we talked about a bunch of other things. Really good dude.
He's good buddies with Breckenmeyer, who I adore. I love Breckenmeyer.
Yeah.
He loves that guy. Yeah, so it's a celebrity interview?
I mean, all of it. I normally when I don't have people on, I talk about like pop culture, movie news, and TV stuff, and just kind of watch what's going on, and we just bullshit every day. And then
What are you excited about right now?
Right now, I'll tell you what my favorite movie of the year was.
Oh, good.
Right now,
Yeah.
Dune 2.
I think that the Dune 1 is one of them. Dune 1 is the only movie I've watched since I was a kid.
Yeah.
5 times, maybe.
So you haven't seen 2?
I've seen 2.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen. I now have it on my iPad, and I'll be on a plane, and I'll just throw Dune 2 on.
Yeah.
I think it's an incredible. I think it's the scope of that film. I remember where I was when I finished the book. So I love that. I love the whole thing.
It's incredible.
The whole thing.
It's incredible.
I think it's incredible.
It just I can't even call it part 1 and part 2. It's like one big long epic film.
Yeah,
It's wonderful.
it's a remarkable
Yeah,
achievement. It's
it
a
really
remarkable achievement, and it's also one of those films that the guys. Can we get my fat off the TV? I don't know if you can see it at
not
home.
on there anymore now.
My fat is like hanging out.
It's not.
Nobody needs their
all
man
right.
bits
No,
hanging out
there
the
you go.
backside.
It's
Oh
gone
my
now.
God.
No one saw that. See, it's all right.
I saw it,
All right,
and
that's
it's
fine.
nobody. Now I'm throwing up in my mouth. No, it's one of the few movies that my buddies and I went to go see together, Dune 1,
Yeah.
and absolutely adored. What's your favorite TV show this year?
Man, you know what's Dark Matter? It was with Jennifer Connelly and Joel Edgerton. I like
Joel Edgerton a lot. I didn't see the show.
I'm kind of fascinated with like quantum physics. I don't know shit about it, but I'm fascinated with the idea of multiverses and that stuff, and the way time could potentially work or not work, and so that to me surprised me. So that was one of the ones. That's the first one that stands out when you ask me that. What about yourself?
My wife is it is one of my favorites. I'm traveling so much right now.
I'm sure.
And so one of my favorite things to do is to get into a show with my wife. And so we're watching Slow Horses right now.
Everybody raves about that show.
It's a simple. It's sort of like an Agatha Christie, modern day Agatha Christie. I don't know why it's not a mystery, but it's a really well put together show. The characters are likable. It's easy to digest. It doesn't really take much.
Gary Oldman's just like next level.
And Gary Oldman is like he is my hero growing up.
Yeah.
I still adore him as an actor. I think he's an incredible actor.
Have you worked with him?
No, I've never worked with him. In fact, I've never met him.
Oh, wow.
I've sort of like, as a kid, there's so much as an actor, you're like, and I don't know if it happens these days with kids. I'm sure it does to some capacity, but when I was coming up, an actor's actor was something that you revered for the work, for their craft, for their ability to sort of stand out in any film. And he has that in spades as a kid. I mean, you know, Sid and Nancy to State of Grace. I mean, he's just an incredible actor.
He's so good. I did get an opportunity to meet him at the Critics' Choice Awards. What a sweetheart of it.
Yeah, and that's what everyone says. He's like so sweet.
Great dude.
And then Penguin. I think I think that Colin Farrell is like turns in a performance that is like I marvel at it when I watch. I'm only in episode 2. I love the kid on it. I don't know his name. The young African-American kid is incredible. Like the entire cast is fantastic. The storytelling's remarkable. It's just an achievement. You know what I mean? And so I'm really enjoying that.
I'll tell you that Kristen Milioti is blowing me away on that show.
Is she the one that plays
the daughter?
Yeah, she's incredible.
She's
incredible.
really, really good. So I've seen 3, and apparently 4 is like the people are talking Emmy already for her performance in 4. I haven't seen it yet though. But
I just think the whole thing's
it's really good. It's really good. So yeah, those are kind of the things that I'm like watching right now. This as far as movies that are coming out. Like Saturday night, I had a screening for and I missed it. The Saturday Night Live movie, and I really wanted to see that one, but I'll check it out. I just saw Smile 2 last night. I liked the first one.
Yeah, I didn't see. I don't go to movies.
Yeah,
I don't see them. I don't go to them. It's just not my. I don't know. It's not my thing, man. I don't really.
People behave terribly in the movie theaters.
Well, it is that. It's also, it's just like. I don't know. I just don't enjoy. It's not something It's not something my wife and I do if we get a date night.
It's so funny that you say that because it's literally the same kind of conversation I was having with Mark Paul. And we were talking about like, because if it wasn't for something for my job, I don't think I would do it either.
Yeah.
We have good systems now. We have good sound systems. We have good televisions. We have things. My wife never goes to movies anymore.
Yeah.
She says, when I want to watch stuff, like we'll do one of two things now. We'll watch it at home, and now I have her on the show with me, and we'll watch alongs
that's
together.
Good.
So
I do like that. That's fun.
We spend time together.
That's good. But I think I miss that though. I do miss the event sort of thing. I miss going to see a movie. Like when all my buddies we went to see Dune. I was just talking about that. The idea of gathering with your friends, being together, talking afterwards. Like I think that's really fantastic.
It is. What about concerts and stuff?
I'm not a music guy.
Not a music guy at all.
In fact, if you said like I have great tickets to blah blah bloopity bloop, I'd be like,
sure,
I'm good.
So what's your?
Now, if you see a musical or a theater, a piece of theater, that's my jam. I will travel to see great theater.
Music. What about comedy, like stand-up comedians and stuff? More so.
So my family and I have a 22-year-old daughter, a 20-year-old non-binary kid, and a 17-year-old boy or 16-year-old boy. We went through a whole thing like last Christmas where we started smashing stand-up comedian specials.
Okay.
Nate Bargatze. I literally, he's the only dude he's the only live ticket I've searched for.
Oh wow.
In like 5 years. I was I want to see this Nate Bargatze guy. I think he's incredible. I think he's so funny.
That's also fun that you're doing that with your kids too, right? Because like I was on my friend's podcast, and stand-up comedy was what I did for a long time, Comedy Store and everything.
Right.
And I was asked on this podcast like what got me into it. Not just the stand-up. George Carlin was a big influence, but my dad used to watch stand-up comedy with me all the time, like the one night stands on HBO, and then I would watch the Dangerfield specials with like Bill Hicks and all those things, and it was. So it means a lot. It stays with your kids. It stays those moments too.
Are you naturally funny, or did you have to craft your humor?
I think a little bit of both. Like because when I was doing my stand up, I went up there just kind of yelling and screaming when I first started,
Right,
not
sure.
knowing what to do, and then I had to craft.
Ladies and gentlemen at home, if you didn't see it, I kicked the shit out of the cord because I just drove 2 hours to.
That's what he said. He said, "Fuck you and your
son of a
2.5 hour
bitch."
drive." So I think that I had a friend, Paul D'Angelo, who was a Boston comedian.
Paul D'Angelo.
It's
what a name
it's
that
such
is,
a great
huh?
name. He is.
I want to meet that kid.
He's not a kid. He's older than us, but he was my mentor in stand up comedy, and he was Boston guy. And I remember one night because I was like 21 years old at Dublin's. Remember Dublin's?
Sure, of course.
And so I'm bouncing off the walls, and he's like, you cannot do that for 10, 15 minutes but within 5 years, you will drop dead. He's like, you can't start at 150 miles an hour.
You nowhere to go.
You have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So I took that, and then I remember I was working for the WWE as a writer, and I came back, recrafted my whole thing, and then, do you know Brett Ernst?
No.
So Brett Ernst, he's on Cobra Kai, but he runs like Sebastian, Sam Tripoli, and those guys. But anyway, he got me into the Comedy Store, and he saw me performing on Sunset, and he's like, you've gotten much better listening to that advice. And it was, so your answer to your question is, it was crafted through stuff that I was a class clown, always not great at school and doing that kind of shit. So, but what about you? Like,
Well, I think, I mean, just in terms of comedy, I always think it's interesting because, I think most people become funny out of self-defense, right? To protect something.
yeah.
And so for me, I was an obese kid and learning disabilities. And so I became funny to distract from the fact that I couldn't spell.
But when did you discover that you were pretty good at, performing and all that, or you had to say, I guess same question you just asked me, is like, did you have to craft it? Like, when did you start getting into acting? Was that also just love?
Look, I was like 13. I mean, it's in eighth grade, my dad said to me, you can do a typing class or an acting class. And the idea was that if I did an acting class, that I would be ready to be a salesman, right? I could go out and present myself in front of people. And, that was a big deal for my dad. And then typing, obviously, he had to fill out reports or whatever. The bastard made me take typing the next year, but I took acting class.
Yeah. Only kid?
No, I have a younger sister.
Okay.
I took an acting class, and it was like the first time in my life that, adults, and Miss Johnson was my acting teacher, and she's like, you're good at this. And so, when you're a kid struggling and you're in the world and you're trying to, you're awkward teenager, like anyone noticing you for something that you're good at was like, it was heaven.
Sure.
And so it just put rocket fuel on it, and that, and I just kept missing on things. And then when I would miss out on a part, I would get really pissed.
Yeah.
And I would like double down. Oh, you're not going to stop me. Oh, I'll show you. And so I had this this relationship with acting where I was like, if I didn't get the lead, I just told the story last night to a group of actors teaching a class. I was like, I didn't get cast in this play Tracers. And then I went off to another school. I collected a bunch of dudes. Because everyone could do like a 5-minute scene. And I got like all these guys in the class because it was that 7-man play. And I was like, let's just put together the first act.
Yeah.
And we built the first act of Tracers because I didn't get cast in that, but then I went and found another way to do it. I was always like, you're not going to stop me. I'm going to find a way to do it.
It's funny that you say that you were able to do that like back then too. I feel it's almost like easier. I'll use the word easier, but there's more ways, I should say, to do it now. If someone wants to make short films, put themselves on YouTube, put themselves on Instagram, put themselves on TikTok, there's ways to.
There totally is. You're absolutely right. The reality is, though, we did not grow up in a world where people are presented what people are offering all the time is like, this is what perfection looks like.
Right.
Like social media, like if you're a kid right now looking at social media, everything you see is represented as a success.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. And so you're like, I can't do that. What if I don't achieve what they've achieved?
Mm-hmm.
And my whole thing is like, fuck that, man.
Yeah.
It does not serve you in any way, shape, or form. And so, while you can produce things easier, right? Because you can shoot things on an iPhone. The reality is that there's so much stress to turn around perfection that these kids are inert. They can't sort of. I'm making an old man generalization. I'm not speaking to everyone in the generation, but so many people are inhibited
Yeah.
by this idea of it has to be perfect, and it also has to forward me. And the whole thing about doing a play is like you invite your friends, and then you do the next play,
Right.
and then you invite your friends,
Right.
and then you do the next play. Just by the nature of live theater, nothing's going to come out of that night other than the work. And coming up, it was so much about doing work and collecting hours and just perfecting your craft. And that's just not this. It's not as relevant. It still is relevant today, but there's so many more things.
There's
that
more
go
shortcuts.
well, there's more people are worried about a result. And I'm like, just go do it. Don't worry about it.
I agree 100%. And it's very, when you're even hearing you talk about that, it reminds me again of stand-up comedy. And where when you start the first time, people used to ask, how do you know when you got a good act and you're doing this? Like, you have to understand, you have to get up on stage every night.
Right.
You have to get on stage and you have to, I go, because I always told people, you will look back and you will hate the stuff that you did a year
100%.
from now. You'll hate it, but you have to keep crafting it and you have to keep working on it. And I agree with you. That's why I said I think there's more shortcuts, because it's like you look, and my friend that I was on that podcast said the same thing, where even when I got into YouTube and all that stuff, that was when it started. Nobody knew what you could do on YouTube.
Right.
Now it's like people aspire to be YouTubers, TikTokers, Instagram. We didn't know that. We had to, like you said, you had to put the work in on stage and do those things. So I understand completely what you're saying. Let's talk AG1. I love AG1. I had it this morning. I love it. It helps you build a healthy morning routine. 60 seconds to get your daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre and probiotics, adaptogens, more. And I've been drinking it for, forever. You can't be part of this show if you haven't heard me talking about AG1. I'm going to give you a couple of fast facts about AG1 and how it supports your gut health. It contains prebiotics, probiotics, and gut-supporting ingredients to support your digestion, reduce bloating, and keep you regular. In a research study, 80% of participants noticed less gas and bloating after 30 days of drinking AG1. For me, I've had a lot of changes since I started to. I sleep better, better gut health, my focus, stress, all of it. It's just great. AG1's powder form makes it easy for your body to digest and access the nutrient-dense ingredients in the formula. They've been around with us for so long because so many of you guys have been doing it also. You've been getting AG1, you've been checking it out, you've been changing your routines, and it's worked. So if you want to start and notice the difference for yourself, it's a great first step to invest in your health, and that's why they've been a proud partner of mine for so long. Try AG1 and get a free bottle of Vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 Travel Packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/bigthing. $48 value for free if you go to drinkag1.com/bigthing. Go ahead, check it out. Built. I really hope that people are going to start taking advantage here of Built, because listen up, renters. If you ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air, it is time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards, and that's where Built Rewards comes in. You've done that before. You've been there. You're like, I'm burning cash with all the rent checks. I'm there all the time. I feel like it. It's frustrating. But here's the deal. Built Rewards has figured out a way to make rent more rewarding. You say goodbye to the money bonfire and hello to a renter's revolution with Built. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, you pay your rent and you watch the Built points roll in. You can use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent now when you go to joinbuilt.com/bigthing. That's joinbuilt, BILT.com/bigthing. And make sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/bigthing to start earning points with your rent payments today. But I want to talk about Macabre. Let's talk about it. Yeah, what's going on?
So I started when we were talking about showing the clip that we just showed.
Yeah.
I started a company with my 4 best friends called Beetle and Grims. We create high-end box editions of Dungeons and Dragons. These sort of premium luxury box editions for Dungeons and Dragons. And so, and it's been hugely successful. It's been great. All 4 of those guys have quit their day jobs. They now run that company, every day in and day out. And as they all came in, I sort of didn't become irrelevant, but they were running day-to-day operations. And around that time, a friend of mine who's a writer in Hollywood came to me and said, "Hey, a friend of mine is selling his company called Blue Run. And we're thinking about starting a whiskey company and building high-end whiskey products for Dungeons and Dragons. Is there a world in which you collaborate what you're doing at Beetle and Grims, which is direct to customer, and what this whiskey experience was when Blue Run, which is a hugely popular brand, was started direct to customer, and that's how they became super successful. And so he said, do you think there's a world where those two things combine? And we got together and had a conversation, and it made absolute sense, right? The idea of creating a whiskey built for fans by fans of something.
Yeah.
And not only did, the first conversation we had is like, well, we don't have to limit it only to Dungeons and Dragons and sort of sword and sorcery. We can do other things. So our first drop was a year ago last week. It's called Quest's End, and it's a 16 drop sort of exploration of bourbon. Actually, that's not true. 16 different chapters of an ongoing saga.
Okay.
Right. And so every bottle is a different character on the journey. Each bottle, the liquid is crafted to represent that character, that specific character. And each bottle, you get the next chapter of the story.
Sure.
So as you're going along, the first 4 drops were Paladin, Rogue, Warlock, and Dragon comes out for this Christmas. So that's the first season of Quest's End. And so what we did is that we brought that to market. Like we went to market this time last year.
Okay.
So we went to market last year about this time. Quest's End, it sold out in the first 2 weeks. We had 5,000 bottles. And then we had this incredible thing happen. We put on a waiting list because we knew we would we kept some bottles behind for breakage, and we were testing a shipping box and all this stuff. And we had 25,000 people sign up on the waiting list in 7 days. And we're like, okay, well, we can't leave all these people behind. And so we launched something called Paladin +1, same liquid, same bottle. We just inverted some of the art, same story.
Yeah.
And it's been off and running since then. We did Rogue. We sold all the units in the first month, which was great.
That's great.
And now we're up to Warlock, and like I said, Dragon comes out this Christmas.
It's funny because when you were talking about it, I was going to say, because there are a lot of people there's a lot of celebrities who have started certain brands, liquor, and whether it's tequila and as you were going, my first question was be like, do you get intimidated at first when it comes to this because a lot of people are doing it? How do you go the market? Sure. But as you're talking about it, I was like, because you're a big D&D guy, and you've been doing it for a while. It started, I was like, oh wait, that makes a lot of sense. You go after that audience also,
yeah, it's so funny. So our whole thing is that first of all, it's not a Matthew Lillard brand. I think a lot of celebrities are out there creating celebrity sort of like, this is my tequila. I am the co-founder, co-CEO. I work every day on it. But it's not built on my fame. It's built for a community, right? So like most of these brands are out like when you walk down Bevmo, you've got 50 yards, 5 shelves high of brown liquid. You're like, every single one of those brands are competing for everybody.
Right.
And our whole thing is like, I don't want to be the number one brand. I mean, obviously, who doesn't want to be the number one brand on that shelf? But our whole thing is like, we want to be the number one brand in a market. We want to be a number one brand in the place that you are the most passionate about.
Yeah.
And so our value proposition always starts with, well, what do we give? What do we bring to a community? Not what we take from a community. What do we give? And that has been sort of the North Star of how we build.
Sure.
And it's been really great, man. It's been like we had a first IRL event down in Atlanta at a convention, and the fans were like, we just love everything you guys are doing. The story's great.
Yeah.
I have to plug Kate Welsh is our writer. She did an incredible job the first 4 books. Tyler Jacobson's literally the most world-renowned fantasy artist in the world. He does all of our art. Our team's fantastic. The liquid is like all premium, super beautiful juice. So, and Alia Cho is our master blender for that first series, and she like crushed it. Like each one of them's delicious, and
it makes it so much more fun and engaging, especially for the community, than just saying, hey, I mean, look, there's nothing against it putting out a really good product. I mean, but when you're putting out art and you're putting out a story, that makes it like, especially because, and it's also, better than anybody, that that community will call out posers within seconds, but they know you're not. They know you're part of the community. And
Yeah. And listen, and our whole thing is like, and listen, and I think that Beetle and Grims had this too, is like, you guys are charging a lot for what you're making. And I was like, just buy a box. You buy a Beetle and Grims box and you play with a Beetle and Grims box, you'll never want to go back. And we will stand by that every single time. We put so much time and effort into that experience so that every single time you sit down at a table, you enjoy a different element coming out of that box. For us, Quest End, like the juice is incredible. The box and beautiful. The box and the bottle is beautiful, and the story is fantastic. So look, there's definitely less expensive whiskeys in the world, but we think that the fans, when they find it, they just sort of love what we're doing. So we took the same idea. And as a brand, we're going to keep doing this, right? And so the next iteration is Macabre Spirits, which is our horror-inspired tequila.
That's
so we're making tequila.
All right. So, and that's, to me, you're making it an event. You're making it, people feel like they're being part of something when they're doing it.
That's exactly right.
That makes sense. And where can people find it, though? They want to go.
So we delivered right to your door.
Oh, that's great.
So it goes to, we delivered to, I think we're up to like 41 states. Okay. Some of the states don't allow it. Like Utah doesn't allow it. And some of the states are prohibited. Right. But, for Macabre, it's our horror themed tequila. It's a reposado that we hand selected. It's delicious. With the tequila, we went to Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
Fall of the House of Usher, incredible director, incredible. We just did a movie together called Life of Chuck that won the Toronto Film Festival. So I went to him and said, and he's sober. And I went to him, I said, would you ever be interested in doing this? And what happens is that each bottle of Macabre Spirits comes with a novella, a short story. It's in a book form. It's beautiful, and he kind of jumped at the idea. Like,
I was going to ask you, didn't have a hesitation with it?
No, he didn't. Okay. No, he was like, I respect what he has a whole forward in the book. He talks about the fact that he's sober, but that doesn't mean that you have to be sober. Okay. So he wrote this incredibly creepy, horrific story that comes with the tequila. So our idea is that, I'm sure you're going to show the bottle, but the bottle's beautiful. Yeah. We went to this beautiful artist named Mia Bergeron, who's she's an artist I saw at an art show like years ago and just kept tabs on her because I thought her work was incredible. And then we gave her the story and she interpreted this painting. So each bottle will have a different painting on the front of it.
That's cool.
And the story will change. We have our next author lined up, and I'm really excited about him as well. And so this brand is like Macabre Spirits. It's all about sort of celebrating, like it's a love letter to horror fans and celebrating. It's more of a literary horror rather than like Terrifier 3 came out this weekend, which is the opposite of. And I love those guys. Those guys are really fantastic. That story is incredible. I think they did the first movie for $200,000 and. This one was $2 million, and it's made $18 million the first weekend. It's
insane.
Crazy.
Yeah, but that's what I wish I use them as an example all the time because it's not necessarily for me. However, for the hard people are loving it. Yeah. As you said, you make that for $2 million, you make the profit. Then you look at something like Joker, which costs $200 million, the second one anyway, and it's got its issues. And I think studios overspend right now. I think that we are past the days where you look at something like Scream. So and the way that Scream was put together in like that.
Well, budget. The real we were talking about earlier, Five Nights at Freddy's. Is a $20 million movie that made $300 million worldwide. It's one of the most profitable films in the last 10 years. Soon to be usurped by Terrifier 3, but an incredible success story. And I think that. Listen, if everyone's looking for IP. Like everyone wants to capitalize on sort of. Building on brands that they think could hit home run. And here's Terrifier 3, and they've built the brand over three short films.
And they're putting the lore up there. So let's stay there then with Five Nights at Freddy's because my daughter would be very upset with me.
Okay, what's your daughter's name?
Vivian.
Vivian, you could do so much better for a father. Do you know how far away you live from the city of New York
We're
City?
35 minutes away, dude.
Hours. I was in the car. Vivian.
We're 35 minutes away. She sent me questions to ask.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Okay, wait.
So she's probably has better questions than I do.
No doubt. I've seen the first foray.
Yes,
questions.
you have. All right. So she asked, how much do you know about the FNAF lore?
It's a good question. And the reason I say that is because I don't know a lot.
Yeah.
But the reason I ended up doing the movie, it's very rare in Hollywood to get an offer for me to get an offer that you're like, I want to consider that. Normally on a big movie, they've gone to 100 other people and somebody's taken.
So no audition, just straight.
So no
up
audition.
right?
It's actually kind of a great story. Actually, Scott, who's the show creator, he's the creator of the game. Scott was going over. This is the legend he tells me, and I don't know how true it is, but I am assuming it is. I just done a Texas Frightmare, which is a great convention down in Texas, and he was going over potential candidates for play this part named William Afton, who's sort of the center of the universe. He is the Voldemort of the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. And so Scott was going over all these names, and they were at the kitchen table, and he said Matthew Lillard, and his nanny at the time was like, "Oh, that's so funny. That guy just spent 5 hours waiting for signing autographs for people who waited after the convention." And Scott was like, "Oh, that may be my guy." And so he did a deeper research and then talked to the team, and everyone got excited about the idea, and they made me the offer, which,
that's cool.
For me to get an offer like that. And I went and sat down with Emma Tammy, who's the director. She's fantastic. I loved her. And I'm like, and I was reading the script, and there's only like 2 lines. I think I the original script, I think I only had like 2 or 3 lines. And I'm like, I don't know why you want me for this guy. It's a yellow rabbit. There's 3 lines. What am I doing? Like, what is this part? And she's the one that said, you're the Voldemort of this universe. And the universe is expansive, and there's going to be multiple films. And then I'm like, I'm in. I'm totally down.
Do you get, because we mentioned Dune before. I remember when Dune 1 came out, it was like right around the pandemic, and so they did the day in release, and Villeneuve was not having, they were just going to put it on streaming at one point. He's like, no. And there was a lot of people putting it in the same day, streaming and theater. Your movie, the Five Nights at Freddy, that's kind of anomaly. It did great in the theater. Plus, were you nervous about that?
Yeah, it was totally. I mean, the funny thing is that I do conventions a lot. I love conventions. Conventions are life-changing for me, and it's been fantastic for my family. And the minute I was announced, I could immediately see my line go from like 3 to 6 hours, like overnight.
Wow.
And you see all these kids dressed up, and you see the passion that they have. I mean, look, there's something beautiful about this, that Scott's created this incredible universe and has allowed the fans to fill in their belief, their fan fiction, their understanding, like their lore. Like they all have these theories as to what happens in the world. Yeah. I came back from that meeting, and I said to my wife, I was like, I got this crazy offer, and I don't know, and it's called Five Nights at Freddy's. And my middle kid who's upstairs came running down and was like, Dad, what are you talking about? It's like, I finally paid attention to me. Yeah. They finally paid attention to me, and they were like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I got this offer to be, this yellow rabbit. They were like, I don't know what the yellow rabbit is. And I'm like, his name, I guess, is William Afton. And they started to scream. Yeah. And I was like, why are you screaming? Yeah. And then my son came down and was like, what are you talking about? And so both of them were like, you absolutely have to do that movie. And, when you're in a career that's been around for so long, and you've got an opportunity to sort of step into a role that is, another franchise that's iconic, and you sort of like, you can't, it's just a gift.
It crushed and I didn't even know how big it was. I mean, obviously it does very well in the theater. It does very well on streaming. It blows up. It's a massive hit. And I'm, like, as I told you, that's what I do, reporting on it when I'm talking about it on the thing. But I really started to learn, holy shit, this is like Star Wars to these kids. Like my daughter, dude, she's obsessed, like loves the lore, and had the same reaction when I said that you were coming. She's like, William Afton. Yeah. So to follow up on her, her next question, which would be, have you ever played one of the games since you've been cast? And if you have, which one?
So yeah, so I said to Scott, I was like, look, there are early research. There is a lot to dive into.
Yeah.
Where do you want me to begin? And he said, just play the first game.
Okay.
He's like, watch these playthroughs. So many kids out there don't play the game. They actually just love watching the YouTube and watching other people be scared. It's sort of like this layer between themselves and the person really sort of feeling that anxiety and fear. And so I played the first game.
Yeah.
And then I really sort of loved trying to find things to hold on to, because there's not a lot of William Afton out there.
Right.
He's the purple guy and he's sort of this elusive character, but trying to find, I keep spitting everywhere. Sorry. I'm losing my voice. And so I'm like,
okay, bro.
my plosives are very wet. Wet plosives. So I just played the first game and that was plenty enough for me. To sort of,
yeah. And that way you get a good feel of it.
I got it, and my job is to it's so funny is so much of that last sequence is improv.
Yeah.
There's so much in it that
they let you play.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was like, hey, we did that take. Can I just choose scenery for a second or two? And it was so fun to go back. It's been a long time since I've played that maniacal dude. And it was just super fun.
That was great. And then, so I guess the next question is it true that on the set of the FNAF movie, Bonnie started moving without the remote control being touched?
Yes. Totally true. She might be under your bed. Bonnie may be under your bed.
Fair enough. And then how did you get to play the character? How did you get in character to play William?
It was funny. So I did that first scene, which is so weird. There's like a little bit where I play this guidance counselor, and that was super fun. But it was really interesting. I put on, so if you've not seen the film, I play this. I'm in this yellow rabbit suit that's like 7 and 8, 10 feet tall, with the ears that goes, God knows how tall it is. With huge boots and the whole thing and the animatronic head. And so you've got all these things. And so the first time I put it on, it was probably like 15 minutes before we started to shoot.
Yeah.
And, you're like, oh God, I got to figure stuff out real fast.
Yeah.
And so it's so funny. I had auditioned for Planet of the Apes.
Oh, okay.
And I loved my audition for Planet of the Apes.
New one, the newest one that just came out. Yeah, okay.
And I worked on this thing I was like the physicality,
oh wow.
And I started when I was working on this thing, I was walking around the house.
I'm fucking pissed you didn't get it.
Yeah, I was like, I thought for sure.
Yeah.
I thought for sure I would get a call back, like a work session or something, because I was like, I really loved this part.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I was doing this crazy stuff. But I put on the suit and I was like, okay, well, now you're this giant rabbit who's about to murder, spoiler alert, his daughter.
Right.
What is that? As an actor, how do you approach that?
Yeah.
And I'm sure Daniel Day-Lewis would have lived in the costume for 12 days and killed 3 children. But there I was 15 minutes before, relying on artistic instinct. And so I just found myself making these crazy sounds and starting to move.
Yeah.
And there's the first scene I have as I walk in under this arch. And I didn't want to walk in and sort of tip my head, and that doesn't work. So I came I found this thing and grew into my space. And I was like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
And I sort of fell in love with this, it became a little these mask classes that you do as an actor, in acting school. And you're like, well, when am I ever going to use this stupid thing? And here I am, 30 years after class going, oh, that's when I'm going to use it. The great thing about going to class, and if there's any actors out there, my whole thing about finding a program and digging in, of course you may not use Shakespeare, and you may never do that sonnet, and you may not ever have to have perfect speech or transcribe a dialect, but there's something powerful about having that tool in your in your tool belt that pull it out when you need it is like beautiful.
Yeah, and that's and the fact that you were able to use that and bring that to, because you were, as you were saying that, it's like you just never know because it's just in there, and then it's like just memory, and then boom, pops in there. It's amazing. So, the other thing was that it was interesting when the movie came out. The people thought that it was going to be maybe rated R because the games are, and then PG-13. Do you know if they're planning on doing the next one in rated R or not?
I know they're not doing rated R.
Okay.
I know that they are committed to, and Scott's committed to no gore.
Yeah.
Right. I think that, I don't want to speak for Scott, God knows, but in general, that's not where he lives. It's not what he likes. He doesn't like that in the world.
Sure.
And yes, it's a story of a man who murders a bunch of children, but it's really evocative rather than in your face.
I preferred that. To be honest with
good.
You. I preferred it. Yeah.
And look, I think that having read, the reason I have this crazy beer is because I go to work in 10 days.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. So, I'm back for the second one. It's about all I can say.
Okay.
And I think that the movie's grown a lot from where the first one was. I think that I think that they've heard some of the things the fans may have wanted, more action, more stuff. I think that the film has progressed, and I think it's going to be really exciting for fans. I think they're going to eat it alive.
Well, Vivian's going to be very excited to hear it.
That is for sure.
Yeah. And then, so you're here for New York Comic Con plus.
Yeah, I'm literally here for this interview 7 hours away from now. I'm literally here to do press for Macabre.
Okay.
Yeah, because so many people here, and so I just flew out to pick up a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
And then, the other thing, you mentioned something when you were talking about apes, and I started thinking like, I never envy. So we have a lot of mutual friends. We have Freddy, Prince Jr. is a friend, and Katie Sackhoff, and and so I have the same, and Bonnie Somerville, who you also were. Yeah. So we had I have conversations with them all the time, and it's just like, even when I was doing stand up, and I would go to the auditions and stuff, and I do that, and I'm just like, I can't do it. It's like it just is like for auditions for me, I was out, right? And being in. Again, bringing back Mark Paul, who was talking about the other day. It's like, and he's very successful. You're very successful. You get to this place where it's just like, you get a role like potential role like Apes, something you want, and it's like that letdown it never goes away, right? But then again, I guess following that up, then you wind up getting Five Nights at Freddy's. Like, there's always something else around the corner, but the rejection, it's just always there, and Did you ever get to a point, part one, where you said, I'm done, I'm going to do something else, or never?
Well, not because of not getting a job. I mean, yes, because of not getting a job. But, here's the thing I like. I'm 54 years old. I've been doing it almost 30 years. I've been acting for almost 40 years, which is crazy. In fact, I think it is 40 years. Look, I think that you grow in wisdom. Like the kid I was when I started isn't the man I am now. And so you start to understand that when you're going, look, if I don't audition, and I'm not in production, which happens, very rarely, then I don't get to act. Mm-hmm. And so for me, the idea of going into auditions and trying to work on this ape thing, like I loved it. I had something to do. Yeah. It doesn't go my way. Sure, that's a bummer. But it is the time spent trying to get the job that is the job. Man, that is the work.
Adding more tools.
Well, it's also like that's the work. Like if you don't have the ability, if you're not auditioning, then you're doing nothing. Mm-hmm. Then you're creating something out of whole cloth, which I think is super important. Like I always say to actors, it's not because you have too much. Like what kills actors is the time between jobs, mm-hmm. and how you sort of like fill that time defines if you're going to make it or not. If you fill that time feeling sorry for yourself and not doing anything acting, and then leaning into your day job and and walking just a little off of the path, then you're never going to make it, because you're going to eventually just fall into oblivion, right? So you've got to be building muscles to survive the downtime. And that muscle, whether that's getting together with friends to read, whether you're producing a play, whether you're shooting something, whether you're writing, whether you're doing stand-up, whether you're doing improv, whatever that shit is, that's the thing that keeps you going.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, you may not get the job, but at the end of the day, that muscle is the muscle you need to work, because at some point you're going to get another shot. And when it's time to work, then you have to be ready.
Yeah.
It's not like, if you're a professional athlete and like in the middle of the season, you're like, yeah, I'm not doing sprints.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? Like, actors are like, so like, I'm not working. Well, then do something else,
Right.
man. Then do something to fill the time that builds muscle, that lets you keep working, that makes you feel creative. Because that's the best part of life. It's not the job. It's the journey.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense too. And I think in the same way that you can bring stand-up back into it, where if there was time that I didn't have something booked, I would find a way to get on stage somewhere and just do it to make sure you're still doing it at all times. Yeah.
Or else what? Or else then you're just doing your day job.
Right.
And then then your day job is just your job.
That that really can, and it starts to overtake it. And it's nothing against the other day job. Maybe the day job is what you were supposed to do, but it's just a matter of, if you're supposed to do it, you're going to do it. But I guess one of the fun questions I like to ask though too is, was there something that a role that, whether it is something that maybe you passed on it, and then it's like, oh shit, someone else got it and it was a bigger role, or just, and they maybe did it better, or you said I wouldn't have been able to do that, or is there something that you just?
I mean, I've never had a role go and I'm like, I can't do that. I mean, I feel like everything, I've told the story a couple times. I went to audition for Jeffrey Dean Morgan's role on whatever the thing, Walking Dead.
Oh yeah, okay.
He played
Negan.
Negan.
Yeah.
And I went and auditioned. It went great.
Yeah.
I loved doing it. They brought me back again. They're like, it's not going to work. But they liked you a lot, so they're going to give you another tweak. I went back like 3 times.
Oh wow.
And it's funny. I was doing Twin Peaks, and we were at San Diego Comic-Con, and the Walking Dead guy's right behind me, and he walks in, and that part goes on. He becomes a legend.
Yeah.
Every con you go to, there's 10 Negans walking around, and look, he's a lovely actor. He's super masculine, and I just would have been more wicked and funny, and he was like super badass and masculine. Like, we would just have totally different takes.
It just depends what they were looking at.
And also he had the offer.
Yeah.
And they were backfilling the offer in case he didn't take the offer.
I see.
So at some point, we're at Comic-Con, and the creator of the show comes over. He's like, you have no idea. You had the part for like 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Because they were like, all right, we're moving on. And then the agents called and said, all right, he's going to take the part.
The shitty business side.
Yeah, because he would have had, at that point, I would have had another 10 years of work.
Yeah. Yeah, but then who knows? But then the same thing we're just saying. You don't know if you're the contract, you can't do some other things that you wind up doing and start.
Listen, at the end of the day, you're like, you just want to. Our goal as artists is to live out our days and die on your last breath, and consider yourself an artist, and to, spend a lifetime doing the thing you love, whether it's successful or not, whether you're doing TV shows or not. It's irrelevant.
When I would mention over the last 2 weeks that you were coming in the studio, and there was a few of the audience had mentioned a particular movie, one of my movies that I just loved, and I watched it so many times when it came out, and I don't know if you get talked to about it a lot, but that's Sideways. Not Sideways. It's not Sideways.
I love Sideways.
Not Sideways.
I
Not
was
Sideways.
so
Not
good in Sideways.
Not Sideways.
The time that Paul Giamatti kicked me in the nuts.
Not Sideways. Fucking.
The Descendants.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Alexander Payne.
Yes, thank you. The Descendants. Yes. I was in the same. I was in the neighborhood. I was in the neighborhood.
I understood.
The Descendants.
I wanted to. I should have let you hang.
You should let me sit in it
for the hours that I had to take.
I don't
to get out
blame you.
here.
You should have.
Hours I should let you sit in it.
Same neighborhood. But yes, The Descendants, and everything that movie, because it was a different role for you.
Sure, yeah.
Also, and so tell me a little bit about working that one, because do you talk about that one a lot? I don't know.
No, nobody ever asks.
Okay.
It's a movie that I think is the single. I think it's George Clooney's best movie.
I agree.
It's incredible in the film.
Yep.
I think Alexander Payne has made a masterpiece, and for some reason it got lost. And I don't know. It's a movie that people don't talk about, and I think it's crazy. At least they don't talk to me about it. I mean, maybe George walks around every day and somebody's like, The Descendants is incredible. But if you haven't seen it, there's I think one of the most brilliant film moments for me in film history. There's a moment when George walks in and Judy Greer is apologizing to his wife who's about to pass. And it is so funny because she is hysterically crying and apologizing. And George is trying to get her out of the room and she's in a coma. And he gets Judy Greer out of the room and turns back to his wife and says goodbye. And in a moment, in less than 10 seconds, you are laughing out loud and crying and moved to this point of like you just get obliterated. And I just think it's a masterpiece. I think Alexander Payne's an incredible filmmaker because he can walk this crazy fine line between these weird, quirky performances that are authentic and yet beautiful. The movie's great. It's a movie that I told the story the other day with a bunch of actors that I got the audition. In the audition, I was like auditioning on Thursday and Friday. It's a long story, so I'll try to abbreviate it. But Friday they said, we got you on audition tomorrow to go in to meet Alexander Payne. Do you want to take it? I'm like, yeah, great. Sounds fantastic. I was like, do me a favor. Can we just change the time? Because I'm going to take my kids. I just started doing the voice of Shaggy for films, and they were screening the movie at Warner Brothers, and my kids had just gotten straight A's. So I'm like, the two kids got dresses, and I was going to take them as like a celebration, right? And the audition was in Santa Monica at like 5 o'clock, and the film started at 6 o'clock in the Valley. And I was like, this is going to be miserable. Can you just move up the audition so that at 4 o'clock I can get done and get up there?
Yeah.
And then as I read the script, it was like it becomes clear that I am the one who slept with George Clooney's wife.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, I'm never getting this job. It's never coming my way. I am not the dude stooping George Clooney's wife. That dude is hot. He's a piece of ass. And I'm like, whatever. I'm not that guy. So I was like, but the opportunity to work for Alexander Payne would be incredible. And I hadn't worked in like a year.
Okay.
And so I was really struggling, really at a low point in my life. And long story short, they're like, they can't move it. You have to go in at 5 o'clock. So I'm like, okay, I'll get there early. But as life happens and kids, I get there at exactly 5 o'clock. And if I left at 5 o'clock, I could have gotten to the Valley and taken my kids to see the movie. But if I go in there, I'm going to be late and this whole thing's going to go sideways. Long story, way too long. I call my agent and I say, hey, I'm going to make the right choice. I'm going to go be a good dad and I'm leaving the audition. I'm not going to the audition. Just tell them I'll come back next week or something.
Yeah.
And the assistant said, I can't find the agent. His name was Steve. He's like, I can't find the agent, but I have to tell you something. They didn't want to see you. We had a client drop out. And we are shoving you into this audition.
Shit.
So you either take the opportunity or you're never getting that job. And so I was like, oh great, now they don't even want to see me.
Right.
And if I leave now, I can go take my kids, but now I'm gonna go in this room and they don't even know I'm coming. Like this is like terrible.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm here. I feel like I have to. I really wanted to work for Alexander Payne. I think it's incredible. And so I was like, I'm going to take my shot. So I walk in, all these dudes are in the waiting room and they're all beautiful.
I was going to say,
like,
was it what you exactly thought? Okay. Yeah.
And like, they're all like great looking guys, like great looking. And, the Hollywood sort of strong chin, abs for days. These sons of bitches. 5'5", but they're like yoked,
right.
miserable.
It was what you thought the role was
it's exactly what you think.
Yeah,
it's exactly who, this billionaire guy.
Yeah, so I'm so curious how you changed this around. Yeah.
So I walk in and I say to Alexander Payne and the casting director, I was like, hey, you guys, we cordial meeting, hi. And I said, hi, here's the deal. This sounds crazy, but I have to go take my kids to go see Scoop. I'm the first to voice of Shaggy. I'm going to take them. They got straight A's. Do you mind if we just do the audition really quick? Because I got to go. And Alexander Payne, they're both like, yeah, sure, go ahead. So I did the audition and I just let it rip. I had nothing to lose.
Right.
Nothing. And I was like, I'm not the guy, but I'm going to be really fucking good.
That's awesome, dude.
And I get done with the audition and Alexander Payne says, and I do think there's moments in life as an artist, you have to hold on to the good stuff. And so he said, that was the best audition I've ever seen.
That's What a comment! You could have just gone home with that.
which is so good.
Yeah.
And then I said, and then I said, too bad I'll never get this job. And he was like, what? He taught the casting director, like, get out of here. And so like 3 months later, he like sort of changed the way he saw the part or saw a bunch. He's very famous for seeing everyone for a part and taking a very long time to cut the film. And so he cast me in this movie.
Wow! Did you have to sit in it for 3 months, or did you kind of know?
No, like 2 days later, they're like, you did great.
That's
And
great.
We're not going to know anything for a long time, but you just know that you did your job.
Good for you, dude. That's what a phenomenal
great.
story is. That's phenomenal. So I'm good. I'm glad I asked you about it.
It was good.
So the other thing I got to ask you about is, and I'm sure this
Is
was
that too
something.
long? I talked too long.
No, dude, no. I thought that was such an inspirational story for people to like. I think to really barrel that, and going back to what you said before, give it your all, no matter what. Even if you don't think that you're going to get it, or you even think you can do it, give it your all.
Well, you have
to every time.
Listen, my whole thing is like, just be brilliant. Just try as hard as you can to be incredible.
Well, it's the stand-up comedy side of it too. I remember, say what you want about the stuff that he's done in the past, but Louis C.K. has always said the best stuff. So it doesn't matter if you are spending, if there's 2,000 people in a room or two, you perform like there's 2,000 people in the room, no matter what. And you don't, there's 2 people here, I don't care. You got to put the effort in no matter what. And I'm glad that you did. And like I said, the movie was really, really good, and I think you were really good in it. So this is something, a challenge here for you when it comes to Scream, because you've talked about it a billion times in your lifetime. Is there, and because I think I've deserved it by putting you in a car for 2.5 hours, is there any story that you've never told about Scream, ever, that you're finding, you say, there's one asshole that's going to ask me about this, and I'm going to tell him. And
I'm going to save it for you.
Save it for me.
No, I'm not saving
come on.
anything for you, you son of a bitch. Not really. I mean, I think the thing people have to understand is that it was just a movie.
Yeah.
It's just a movie that caught fire, and it's just been popular because they keep making sequels.
Did you watch? Have you watched any of the sequels?
Yeah, I watched a couple of them. I've missed a couple of them.
Yeah.
I saw the last 2. I like the last one to me is too violent. I don't really understand Ghostface running around with a shotgun personally.
Yeah.
For me, that's not clever. I think one of the great things that Kevin did, and I'm excited to see what he does for the future, is that, I think that the movie's smart. Mm-hmm. And I think the movie always has to be really smart and funny. I do think there's great moments to find levity in horrific circumstances and not play the joke.
Yeah. Well, obviously Skeet came back for a few of the flashbacks. Was there ever any meetings or any talks about you coming back?
No, originally I was supposed to do, and this is out there now, but I was supposed to do 3. And then right before we started to shoot, Columbine High School happened.
Oh, okay.
And the idea of it was that I was running kids from prison to do horrible things in school. And so justifiably they scrapped that idea.
Makes sense.
But the last 2 movies, there are a whole bunch of Easter eggs that Stu's still alive. And, and listen, who knows what happens in a horror movie.
Yeah. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming in here today. I really appreciate it. And I will make sure that the link to make sure that they can get
that'd
Spirits.
be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
That'd be really great.
That is going to be in the description. So make sure you check that out. Obviously, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is going to be out soon. The body work in general, I could have talked to him forever, but I got to let him get the hell out of here. He was very generous with his time, most of that sitting in a car. Thank you so much for being here, dude.
It's very rare that I get to sort of share longer stories. So many things are so fast and so quick. So I really appreciate you letting me sort of talk too much.
Yeah, no, please. And we'll do it. And next time we'll do it virtual. We'll do it from when you're in LA, and then we don't have to leave your house.
You're so dead to me.
That's fine.
Did you just say next time?
That makes sense. Well, you said that last time. I got you in here. I got you in here last time, 6 years later. All right. Thanks, everybody. Matthew Lillard. See you later.
Thanks.
Bye.